Okay, so today on Radical Linux, we're going to try the plasma cutter with the generator. There's a tracked vehicle going out to rescue another tracked vehicle. But let's go check this out. So we're waiting on this generator to come in because it has enough power to run everything. So I'm going to start it up. We're going to go in. I've already cut a bit of it. So we're just going to focus on here. It's going to be cutting, and you'll be able to watch from this side. Let's see how much sparks come out of this side of this this cut. But the game plan is going to be, we're going to need to actually cut it a bit further, and we're going to reinforce this section on both sides and throw in a door, and then also electrical panel so that we can connect this 3,550 watt generator with the 120 volt 30 amp locking plug, which will then power everything in the C-can. Now, as you can see, I have the plasma cutter set up, the Hobart 12CI. As a ground clamp, and I didn't know this until I started, but you definitely need this guard because it keeps the right spacing for the entirety of the cut, which is mandatory. Because if you don't have that, it's going to trip off. And I figured that about here. I didn't bother with the guide to make it straight because we actually have to cut further on. But I'll solve that later on with the actual way we're supposed to do it. For the most part, I did this freehand, which actually ended up pretty good. Now, there is a bit of, it's not perfect, trying to get it along the top because it ends up spraying all the molten metal my direction, which I don't like because I'm already bald enough. Burning my hair kind of sucks, but let's fire this up and see what happens. So I'm just gonna set you up probably about here. It's gonna be pretty noisy, so there's no point in audio. But we'll see what happens. Alrighty. And if the puppies come by and knock it over, I will be angry. Alright, fire up generator. Power switch. Fuel. Choke is on. Hold start. As you can see, I did not forget my PPE. Gloves. Alrighty, so that was the plasma cutter. Not too bad, eh? At least I think so. It unlocks a lot of capabilities. Basically any metal that you want to cut that's under was it 7 gauge? I'll basically cut about 4 millimeters of steel fairly easily. Let's take a closer look. So the plan for the whole thing is being able to basically take sea containers and turn them into whatever you want. And in this case, I don't quite have it yet, but we'll see later. The game plan is being able to insulate the elements fairly well. But that was easy compared to grinding it. Like just getting to here took about an hour, and that's because of the frictional forces, or the pressure on one side, pressure on the other, that was crimping it together. And that's because the weight of the sea can is actually held up by these corrugated shapes. But we're gonna have to reinforce it with a bunch of wood or steel. We'll see what we end up doing, but it'll do a good job. And this actually, we can recycle this. We're gonna use this for something else. I'm not too sure what yet, but you got to stay tuned because some of the crazier ideas I have down the road involve. Well, I ordered the diesel burner. I'll share some details on that later. But the diesel burner basically be a, well, it's easier for me to show you. When you burn diesel, you need fuel and air, and the diesel burner for the forge has an inline connection for compressed air. So we're going to be compressing air, forcing it into a stream of diesel fuel that's going to pre-mix within the thing. But it's going to basically be a small forge that you put outside. So weld together something that'll hold the fire bricks, which is basically, I think it's like concrete mixed with silica and some other ingredients to make a very high temperature brick, basically, and it'll resist a lot of heat. But the idea is going to have a small forge here, burning diesel. Not the ideal situation, but I have multiple ways of generating enough heat to melt and recycle metals. There's induction heating, which basically uses electricity and inducts a current within electricity using coils to heat up a piece of metal. That's going to be one component, but that's probably down the road when I figure out the system that exactly what I want, because it'll need to be a conveyor belt. There's also a guard dog here who looks like he just got caught up in a bunch of things. His name is Boo Boo, and he's just taking a quick rest. But we're gonna have to clean this up down the road going. Everybody just came back from like a big fishing trip, so there's a bunch of stuff that'll need to be cleaned up down the road. So there's Boo Boo. He's the guard dog. He's got a big honking head, right? Boo Boo, let me see your head. He's huge. So he is the uncle to my puppy Juno. And yeah, he's just chained up to the sea can, but if anybody comes around, he'll prevent him from trying to haul off my generator or tools I picked up. This snowmobile is being repaired by a nephew, so he's working on that. I do have to figure out the electrical, so that's going to be the game plan going forward for the summer, is paint the outside of the sea can, strip the interior, figure out what's going on for the electrical. I'm thinking what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the 2x2s because they're nice and cheap. Running along the entire ceiling, and I don't think we're going to insulate the inside. I don't want to insulate the inside for the following reason. Fire risks are a big deal. So if I was able to take the sea container and insulate the interior with aircrete and insulate the exterior with rigid foam, closed foam, whatever the case may be, that's going on the exterior of the sea can. But these doors are coming out preferably this summer, and we're going to be putting in shutters. So we'll be cutting through all of this, heavy bits of steel that'll be coming off. Maybe I can recycle them if I'm able to get the diesel forge up to a hot enough temperature. And yeah, I'm gonna need an anvil down the road and the ability to whack things with a hammer. And that's the game plan for recycling some of this stuff. Well, the game plan is being able to recycle within the sea container all sorts of things. This is specifically geared towards repairing ATVs and snowmobiles. And the next sea container, which I'll probably be provisioning setting up down south while I'm down for school, will more than likely be a recycling container for plastics. But this will be the portable one, and I'm not too sure what it's going to look like down the road. But it gets hot enough with this heater. The rear legs are broken off, but we're going to be using the bits of frame that I stripped off the Yamaha Grizzly. That frame is broken. Because now, if you can see, on top, this sea container. So all of those bits will be found, well, we'll find a use for them. And the bottom frame that was bent, I'm actually going to be recycling this guy for the rear swing arm of my mini bike for when I put the rear suspension mod onto it with the plasma cutter, the MIG welder, the two bigger tools that I picked up for the Secan. Generator will power everything. But the game plan for this is we're probably going to chop it at the weakest point, which was the weld here. And now that I have a spray gun and the ability to paint things properly, we can maybe we'll paint the whole frame black. I don't know. There's a lot of modifications coming in for this bike. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to chop this strut, and maybe we'll chop it here and there. And with the parts that we've taken off the bike, rather the Yamaha Grizzly, we'll be trying to adjust some things, because we definitely want to keep at least this part completely intact. But we'll probably we'll just throw a notch in there, throw a flat piece of steel, put a bracket up for rear suspension, and have the seat up here. But I think I also want to take the engine's gas tank, and I want to mount it up here, just because it's a gas tank. It should be right in front of you when you're driving. There are some additional things I do want to do with this bike as well, but that, for the most part, is what we'll be doing. But yeah, it'll be pretty cool. Peace.